Hey everybody, I'm going to be making a video today about the gaslighting going on with this 9/11 Iceberg video. Um, what happens is YouTube doesn't like videos about 9/11 that question the official story. So this clown that's made these Iceberg videos, what he's doing is you're allowed to make videos if you stick to the official story and mock conspiracies and this type of thing. So this is what this clown's doing is he's finding little things that he can argue for each little case, so that he's staying on the FBI, CIA. He's staying on that side and mocking anything that questions anything about the events of 9/11. It's pretty sick that this guy's making money off of this, and it's disgusting. So I'm going to go through and expose all the lies, as many lies as I can kind of quickly find. I'm not going to spend the whole 3 hours going through everything, because it would take hours and hours for me to go through everything. But I'm going to go through a lot of the lies that this guy's saying, and this guy's so pathetic, man. He's had like a lot of years of YouTube, and all his videos have like 60 views, but now he's made these Iceberg 9/11 videos that kind of fool people into think he's questioning it, but all he's doing is he's taking the CIA, FBI stance and mocking people that question anything. So it's really disgusting what he's doing. So I'm gonna point out some truth to this guy's lies, is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna quickly kind of scroll through and find stuff, because I studied 9/11 back in the day, maybe in 2012, 2013. I actually spent a year of my life just on my free time, kind of looking into the official story, and I found a lot of loopholes and a lot of strange coincidences. So I'm pretty well versed in 9/11. I know, they've scrubbed the internet of it over the last 5-7 years. So all the stuff they've scrubbed, I've already seen, so I can kind of explain a lot of the lies that are being pushed now. But
North and South Towers. The World Trade Center
let's
was
get
a
into this.
complex of high-rise office buildings.
Okay, so you can see here what when we see the collapse, you have to remember scientifically. Just think of it as a Jenga. Think of this as a Jenga set right here, okay? If you damaged a few of the bricks at the top, the bricks do not fall into the bottom bricks. The bottom bricks, say I set fire to the top bricks, I damage the top Jenga bricks. The bricks would not then fall down through the bottom bricks. The bottom bricks would remain solid because they've not been damaged, okay? You see what I mean? This is the key. This is when you start to look at science. This is an undeniable fact that anybody that it could take 3 minutes of explaining that this could wake up everybody to 9/11. The thing is the only way that the buildings could fall in this manner is if the bottom mass was being removed, because mass does not fall towards it would fall towards the least resistance, not towards the most resistance. The most resistance is these bottom bricks right here, the bottom layers with these steel columns. It would not fall towards these steel columns, it would fall away, and it would not fall in this nature. This nature shows each floor is being removed floor by floor by floor. It's the only way that the mass would move to this, and you can see it very clearly. The firefighters were talking about finding, some of them were saying the biggest pieces they were finding was like a number of a phone, like the number you used to type on a rotary phone was the biggest pieces they were finding. It's because this is all blown up by nanothermite charges, floor by floor by floor. It's all controlled demolition. But just to say you knew nothing of that, just scientifically, the mass always falls towards the least resistance. In this case, the mass fell towards the most resistance, which goes against all sorts of science and everything. So we know that this is a lie right here, and you can see it. You can actually see it when you understand what's going on.
The North Tower was struck first. Flight 11 and flights were killed, bent inwards, eventually giving way to a full collapse.
Okay, so this is all CIA, FBI,
elevators,
gaslighting,
office space, commercial space, and so on. This design choice was a marvel in 1968.
This
The
whole
fires
theory about the buckling floors is nonsense, because the buildings were actually built to withstand multiple plane crashes, because you can't build a building that big without they expect there's fog, and there's always the expectation that there could be a potential plane collision. So when they build buildings this big, they have to be able to take a plane collision. They know this. So anyone that says, "Oh well, they could have never guessed that the airplane would hit and there would be gasoline. They could have never guessed that." No, yeah, they do guess that, because that goes into making the actual building. Because if all it took was that a plane made a mistake and hit the building during fog or something, and it's huge, tall building, if that's all it took, they would never make these buildings in the first place, because that would jeopardize everybody in the building, and when the building collapsed onto thousands of other people. So they would never even make these buildings if that was the case. It's a lie. And the one of the architects of the World Trade Center buildings actually said it was made in similar to like when you have a screen door in the summertime, like a screen out in front of your door, the screen door. If you were to poke a pencil into that door and even set a little fire to the screen door, you could do that numerous times, and the screen would still maintain its shape. It would not collapse, because each little piece keeps it keeps it all intact, and that's the way that the World Trade Center buildings were built. A plane, the one of the architects said that the planes could actually have withstood multiple plane collisions, and of course they could have. If you see the steel columns, the only thing that could take that out, like in the way that it did, was controlled demolition, and that's why there was, for months after 9/11, there was underground fires, and they couldn't figure out, why are these fires not going out. And the reason why the fires were not going out underground, and they were seeing molten steel, some of the firefighters were saying molten steel underground, like a foundry. The firefighters said, you could find that clip. The reason why is because nanothermite can burn, believe it or not, underwater. It does not need oxygen to burn. Okay, so they were trying to figure out, why are these fires not going out underground for months after 9/11, if you can believe that. And this is one of the things you won't see that in this video, because this video is pure gaslighting, because the nanothermite was not going out from the water they were trying to spray on it to take out the fires, okay? So this is what I'm saying about how this video could go on for quite a bit, so I'm going to try to scroll through it quickly, because there's a million things I could say about the lies that this guy is putting in here.
weakened the steel core at 2 a.m. and Flight 11 and Flight 175. Flight 70 nearby hotels take South Tower in Jules and Get Osama bin Laden. Osama bin Laden was the public and set up a earlier bomb until it was dropped completely.
Okay, so 9/11 was done by the American government, elements within the American government, to give them a reason to get into the Middle East, because of all the resources. And a lot of these people, like for instance George Bush, had him and his father had the Carlyle Group, and Cheney was involved in Halliburton, and all these groups had financial interests in the Middle East, because these are wartime companies, and there's a lot of. See, what happens is with these groups is they look 10 or 20 years into the future, and they say, okay, well, what's coming up? Okay, well, we need to take control of the Middle East. They've got minerals that we need that are going to go into these future cell phones and these TVs that are going to be a big thing, these flat screen TVs, and these like things like this. They look, the dominoes, they know how the dominoes are going to fall. They have some of the world's top thinkers, and they get together and they consider, what's the plan. And they decide, hey, if we don't get into the Middle East, if we don't find a way in to get this oil and to get these minerals and to take control of this, what's going to happen is another country like China or Russia is going to do it, and they're going to now have a huge edge on us in the future. So they're looking 10, 20, 30, 50 years into the future when they plan these type of things. So when people think, oh, well, they would never do 9/11 because they're killing 2,000 people and that no country or government would ever do that to the people. No, that's a small price to pay to these type of people that think this way. Okay? So don't ever think that they would not do something like this. They would do it in a heartbeat. And there's a million people, psychopaths, that would do this type of thing in a heart. They wouldn't even think twice. It wouldn't bother them at all. They would laugh about it. In fact, they would enjoy it. Not only would they not feel bad, but it would make them feel good. So don't ever put your empathy into people like Bush or Cheney. They don't have that type of empathy, and they laugh at that type of empathy. So don't ever think like that.
The Falling Man. The Fall. Kevin Cosgrove, Clark, and Stan.
No way, that's a steel structure. That's just draperies and carpet.
Cheated death. A hand and Roselle. The miracles survived. Out based on the clothes, meanwhile, created and conducted state-of-controlled demolitions. This is where the fun begins. Now we're getting controlled, can't melt steel beams. But it sure as hell can soften them up. Steel loses approximately 50% of its strength at only 1200 degrees Fahrenheit.
Okay, again, this is gaslighting. These buildings are built to withstand fires. If a fire could take out this building, they would never have built it in the first place. That's why we've seen in China and other countries, they've got buildings that burn for 4 days straight, 100% inferno, and it still maintains its structure because the steel frames. This is why there's never been another steel frame building fall before 9/11. There's never been another steel frame building steel frame skyscraper fall after 9/11. Because they still maintain their structure because the steel core is so strong that it's absurd to like I said, there's been fires. You can Google this and find it. It's that in these steel frame skyscrapers that burn for days, and it still maintains its structure. To think that a building like Building 7 could burn for 7 hours and all of a sudden it collapses into its own footprint is pure gaslighting. And there's people that could argue that the sky is green, and you'd go, wait a minute, no, the sky's not green. And they could go, well, let me just talk about tints and shades, and you see, anybody could gaslight you about anything. I could find 20 experts that could tell you the sky is green. What you need to do is you need to start using common sense. You need to look at all the pieces of evidence and all the strange coincidences about 9/11. You need to put it all together. You need to think, wait a minute, why is there so many strange events that happened on that day? Why was the NORRAD, training in Canada for an attempted hijacking event that, you have to ask yourself, why are there so many coincidences about 9/11? And that kind of will lead you to the truth, because there's so many strange lies and coincidences about 9/11 that it only adds up to that the story is BS.
And the numerous
and like I said, I could tell you the sky is green and not blue, and I could get 12 experts in here, 6 of them funded by the NIST and the CIA, and they could all tell you how you're actually wrong and the sky is green. At some point, you need to use your own brain. You need to forget what these guys are telling you, and you need to think, well, wait a minute. Where's the cameras from the Pentagon that had 90 cameras? Why did these 3 buildings, the only ones that have ever collapsed due to fire, how did this all happen in one day? Where was NORAD? How did the plane get to the Pentagon after an hour of knowing that there was terrorist activity? It just goes on and on and on. And at some point, you need to start to just look at the facts and kind of start to think about coincidences and realize it doesn't make sense.
Center, like rugs, office furniture.
See, another thing about this video is this guy, YouTube does not allow you to make videos about 9/11 truth. They ban everything like that. So this guy here is making money because what they will allow you to do is kind of see how he's pretending to question things, but at the same time he's taking the official side, the official FBI, CIA, NIST story. He's like, well, look at this. This is how this happened, and this is how this happened, and this is how this happened. So all you conspiracy theorists are wrong. You see, they allow that. That's why he's allowed to make money off of this, and it's really disgusting. Because when you mock things, like say you were to make a video about Alex Jones, but you were to mock him, they would allow you to keep that up. But then there's other videos where that would take it down if you said he was a good guy or things of this nature. So they'll allow you to mock things as long as it's in the right way that they want you to say it. And this is what this guy's doing. The guy had 4 videos that had 200 views before, and now he's making all these videos about 9/11 because he's making money off of it by sticking to the official story.
Printer paper, which can be seen littering the skies in nearly.
And again, one of the hijackers was identified because they found his ID on the ground that day. I'm sure that's what he's going over now. They found his ID in the rubble that day. The black boxes were melted and couldn't be found, but they found his ID. So this is
every video from 9/11.
This is where he's trying to gaslight you about probably how they found his ID here.
Didn't help. It's even the smallest of explosives make a very loud boom. Seven collapse and tenants. Even the smallest of explosives make a very loud boom. 7 collapse and.
Okay, so again,
tenants.
So look at 7
World
collapse
Trade
here.
Center 7 collapse and tenants. World in the smallest of explosives. 7 collapse and tenants.
There is no other explanation for this than that was a controlled demolition. You cannot have a building fall. It's not just a demolition, it's like a perfectly executed demolition of the building. The reason why is, like you see again, it's falling into its own. It's falling. Mass will not travel towards the most resistance. When it falls down like that, it's falling towards the most resistance. This will not happen. This goes against science and everything else. And this building was barely damaged. It had a few fires. It's absurd to even think. I'm not even going to waste my time on this, because if you look at this and you don't see a controlled demolition, you're not of high enough IQ to understand. But it's absurd to not know that this is a controlled demolition. You can see it very clearly.
7 collapse and tenants.
Buildings don't fall like that. Okay, in order for it to fall this quickly, if you were going to say it was a pancake, it would not pancake. It would pancake like this. Each floor would be, you'd see each floor hitting itself and taking more time. What you see here is a free fall demolition, because it's not pancaking. It's actually the floors below it are being removed floor by floor by floor, so it can fall in uniform if you actually watch. So let's think about this. If it was to fall floor by floor by floor, there would be a slight delay when each floor hits the next floor, but you don't see that. Watch again. Watch. You're going to see the mass removed beneath so that the mass can fall to the path of the least resistance. If it wasn't for each floor being removed, it would not be able to flow at this speed. So watch again.
7 collapse and tenants.
You see, there's no pancaking going on there. That's just mass being removed floor by floor. That's a controlled demolition. And that takes about 2 weeks to set up those explosives for that. And he goes over Larry Silverstein here, who talks about, quote, pulling it. The fire department is not in control. They don't do that. That's not what their job is. They don't set up demolitions. Okay, that's a control. There's demolition companies that do that. The fire department has nothing to do with that. So the fact that he talks about talking to the firefighters about pulling it, meaning 7 the building, is absurd. Firefighters don't do that. Okay, and they certainly would not do that in a building that was already on fire. They would. It takes weeks to do this. You would not have somebody running around in a building filled with fire trying to figure a way how to blow it up. That's not how it works. So
collapse was did by the building spring, the same as the towers before it.
Yeah, this is where he tries to gaslight you about how damaged 7 was. There's no real clear.
7 collapse and tenants. 7 collapse, and I can definitely.
This is where he tries to tell you look how damaged the building is. And don't forget about Oklahoma City bombing, right? Look, that building was missing half of its front. Half of its building was gone, and it was still standing. So don't tell me this minor little damage here is enough to take the building out with a few fires. Come on, please.
The collapse just does not look the same as the towers before it, and it happened quite a while after the.
See, even he's trying to gaslight you, and even he's like, wait a minute, I can't explain this. And you know what? Nor could NIST or the 9/11 Commission. In fact, the 9/11 Commission couldn't even they had no explanation for this building, so they left it out of the 9/11 Commission report. Most people don't know about this building, so they instead of trying to figure out a way to explain this, they decided to leave it out of the 9/11 Commission report because there's no way to scientifically explain this. They know, they're like, wait a minute, this is absurd. How the hell did this building fall? So they just left it right out. They didn't even mention it because they know there's no way you can explain that. And even this guy trying to gaslight you in this video, he couldn't even explain it, so he tried to
and pull it. Speaking of World Trade Center 7, Larry terrorists, and you can't do anything about it. According to many conspiracy videos he had. Imagine being the owner. According to many conspiracy videos, pull it is an old demolition term. To pull the
Well, look at the way that Silverstein said it. I mean, see, again, he's trying to gaslight you here. He's saying, well, pull it could be a many different things, just like I could say, oh, well, the shades of the sky is technically, although you think it's blue, I mean, I've got 6 scientists here that think it's slightly turquoise. It's kind of so I could get 6 people to tell you it's green. You see, that's what's going on here, is he's trying to misdirect you. Well, pull it could be used many different ways. I mean, just because he said, so there's been such a loss of life, and I spoke to the firefighters, and the best idea was to pull it, and we made that decision to pull it, and then we watched the building fall. So the way that he was using pull it was that he was describing that they were taking the building down. They were destroying the building. I mean, that's just common sense. Again, that's what I'm trying to say. Is at some point you need to use your own common sense to what's going on. You can't just always assume that this guy's saying this and this guy's telling you, because if you do that, there's 27,000 people out there trying to gaslight you and lie to you and put you in a misdirection. So at some point you need to kind of put the facts together and think about it with your own mind.
The building is to detonate this in a lot of places. Others said it was related specifically to pulling down a pre-weakened structure using cables and
pulling down so think about that, pulling down the weakened structure using cables. Where was the cable? You see, I mean, this guy is just pure lies.
Demolition terminology provided me with. Why would you fuck up that badly on national television?
Why would you fuck up that badly on national television? Maybe because these people had no thought ever that they would ever be even questioned about this. I mean, who's going to question them?
Television. It's not like this.
They didn't. The internet was not a big thing back then. You have to remember this. They had the media was in total control. They had 16 channels. People got their news from the TV. They didn't foresee that the internet was going to be what it was going to be. They didn't know that there was going to be this free flow of information. They didn't have fear of if an old guy, 80 years old, makes a mistake like this. He didn't consider that type of thing.
A live broadcast or anything. He could just. Part of a later interview he did with Dylan Avery. So what's the truth? There was a report of a explosion. Witnesses and saved for study and investigation. It was reported that Shanghai Baosteel Group Corporation, a Chinese steel, had purchased about 50,000 tons of steel.
Okay, so what happened after 9/11 is they got rid of the steel real quick. Instead of if a plane crashes, what happens is they find every single piece of that plane, even if it crashes into the ocean or anything like this. They find every single little piece of the plane to make sure they can figure out how it happened, how it was destroyed, and how they can prevent it in the future. On 9/11, they decided, you know what, we need to get rid of this metal as soon as possible before they figure out what we've done and how this happened. So they shipped it all off to China to sell it. And this guy's trying to tell you, oh no, they quickly needed to sell it and get rid of it. No, when a crime scene happens, you need to study the crime scene. You need to have forensic experts look at it, and you need to try to figure out how we can make a building never fall down like this ever again. Considering this would be the first, second, and third skyscrapers to ever collapse like this, it would be of the utmost importance to make sure this does not happen again. But instead, they took all the evidence and they got rid of it as soon as possible. Again, you need to think about it. This is just another piece of evidence. Why would they do something like that? Okay? So you can't listen to this guy and say, oh, well, it makes sense that they sold it to China. It was a quick buyer. No. What makes sense is that you look at the crime scene. one of the biggest crime scenes in the history of the United States, and they would have wanted to study this if they wanted a real investigation. They would have wanted to study this as much as possible to make sure they knew what happened and that it never happened
at a
again.
price of $120 per ton on missile to distorting objects.
Okay, the Pentagon is one of the key pieces of 9/11 of how you can tell it was an inside job. The Pentagon was hit nearly an hour after the trade centers were hit by a plane. They knew that the building, that the WTC-1 and WTC-2 had both been hit by planes an hour earlier. Okay, so now they have a plane flying towards the Pentagon, and this is the most, you have to remember, this is the most protected airspace on the planet. They have surface-to-air missiles that can take out planes and things of this nature that take out threats. None of that came into play. Instead, what happened was, and there's 94 cameras in this area here. They had 94 cameras trained on this area during that day, and what they came up with was, this clip only came out in 2005 under the Freedom of Information Act. This little tiny, it looks like a Scud missile, and which is most likely what hit the Pentagon. Because like I said, I studied this in 2013 for a year, and there was a lot more information on the internet back then that they've scrubbed. But when you saw the Pentagon back then, you can still find it, I'm sure if you look far enough. It's out there. People still have it. Is the hole in the Pentagon was a single hole that looked like a Scud missile hit it. There was no the hardest part of a plane is actually the engines, and there was no holes that the engines would have hit the Pentagon. There was just one single hole that looked like a Scud missile, which makes sense because in this video you see that whatever they're showing is not a plane. It's too small. We know that based on just, you can judge sizes based on like you can just tell that it's not the size of a plane. And this guy tries to gaslight you again about this, but the Pentagon is a huge key piece of evidence about 9/11 because it's so absurd that you have to remember this is like a two and a half, 3-story building at the most. For somebody to fly in with a plane at this level here is so absurd at 500 miles an hour. Think about going 100 miles an hour in your car, okay? So you're telling me this guy flew at 500 miles an hour at ground level, dodging cars, bridges, light poles, everything, and he just happened to get ground level right here. This is where they say it came in. Watch the mouse here. Okay, so first of all, there's no damage to the lawn. So you can imagine how much damage that a plane, the force of that plane at that speed would do to the lawn. There was zero damage to the lawn that should have been shown from the plane damage. And they had to release this clip in 2005 under the Freedom of Information Act, of course, because they didn't want to release anything. And what they ended up releasing was a highly suspect clip that does not show a plane. It's absurd. They had 94 cameras in this area, including gas stations and things that the FBI went around and confiscated the film. That's why there's only this one little tiny clip, because what hit the Pentagon was not a plane. It's a fairy tale to think that somebody could fly a plane. People think that it's like Grand Theft Auto, like you hop in a plane and look at this. I'm at the no. That's not how it works. I mean, you don't just fly around at 500 miles an hour and go down to the ground and, oh, look, there's the exact place I want. No, that's not how it works, especially when you're supposed to have NORAD, fighter jets that already know that there's a threat, on a plane coming for an hour. I mean, it's an absurd fairy tale. It's hilariously, the Pentagon, if you actually take 10 minutes to study the Pentagon, what happened, is one of the most key pieces of information about, or key pieces of evidence about 9/11, about how it was planned and an inside job done by the U.S. government, portions within the U.S. government, including Cheney. Cheney was definitely involved because he allowed he gave the stand down orders about the Pentagon. They knew, they're like, Sir, Mr. Cheney, we have an incoming flight. We're thinking 10 minutes. And they're like, this is on record. If you actually look this up, and Cheney was like, stand down. Have not told you to change the order. Stand down. Like, this is on record. So it's absurd that to even think for a second that a plane could make this type of maneuver in that scenario after an hour after the worst terrorist attack in American history. Come on, this is the most protected airspace in on the planet. They've got surface-to-air missiles. They've got cameras everywhere. They've got NORAD fighter jets. I mean, it's absurd to think that they would get there like this.
And
It's
making
a
them
joke.
appear smaller or farther away.
And this guy
If we
tries to
apply
gaslight you like he's done the
Henry
whole video.
got no farther than the hijacker. Architects and engineers no sense. The group is still holding events to this very day as it is applied to it. Therefore, the conclusion to this paper is somewhat compromised. Havel Hlava North Tower, just barely able to see the collapse of the time. Later today, the Pentagon Bureau.
You see in his video? In his video, he's not showing you, when it comes to the Pentagon, you'll see this here, look.
Ahmed and
when he shows you the Pentagon, he's only showing it after there's been a collapse.
Falls apart so easily because in order to believe CG heightened defense.
I can't find the part, but there's a part where you'll see the Pentagon here where he only shows the Pentagon after it's already collapsed. When I was studying 9/11, what happened was you actually got to see. They've tried to scrub this from the internet because it's such an absurd piece of evidence, an obvious piece of evidence, that they only show it now when it's already collapsed. But before, you could actually see where the hole was, and it was a single hole. There was no engine. The engine is the hardest part of the plane, and there's one on each wing. It's the hardest. It's like, I don't know how many. It's tons of steel, huge piece of steel, and it's the hardest part of the plane. And there is no holes on either side of the Pentagon hole. There's just the one single hole, which was definitely a Scud missile. It was definitely a Scud missile because, first of all, a plane could never make that flight path. It's absurd to even consider it. But
he didn't. Mark's.
It's absurd to even consider it, but it's when you actually see the hole that was there, they hide it now, but you can still find it. I'm sure somewhere. I've seen it. You know, like I said, I studied this a decade ago. It's absurd that the wings made no holes because the hardest part of the plane is actually the engines on the wings. There's no engine holes. It was just a single hole from a Scud missile or something they hit it with. Most likely, we assume it. We think it's a Scud missile.
Prague connection.
So he's gonna gaslight you about all sorts of weird stuff, you know. NORAD drills. What's he say about the NORAD drills? I didn't get this far because this was pure gaslighting.
And had been declared a sponsor of terrorism in 19. P-Tech. Chief of Staff of Bill Kristol, even if it Ace Baker suicide can't do it. Mystery plane. No, the United States
see, they're
and
going
Israel.
I was the head of the Central.
Yeah, see at the end there they start to get into some ridiculous.
Like the panel. For 2001. Regardless of that.
Yeah, see now they're getting into ridiculous stuff. They're trying to. This is all misdirection. What's going on here?
9/11 religious prophecy. And the.
Okay, here we go. This should be interesting. Let's see this because I know this
had predicted 9 things off with The Lone Gunman, a 2001 spin-off of The X-Files. The pilot episode, first premiering in March of that year, featured a plot twist that involved members of the U.S. government planning to hijack a Boeing 727 remotely and crash it into the World Trade Center, which they would then blame on anti-American foreign dictators.
You said they intend to bring us down in the middle of New York City?
And I would advise everybody out there to go and find this on YouTube. It's an easy one to find. The Lone Gunman, X-Files 9/11. If you type that into YouTube, you'll be able to find this clip. It's very interesting. And Chris Carter, the writer for this, actually later said that he was offered this, that the FBI offered him this story here, and they wanted him to put this into their into the show. So this is what's known as predictive programming. And if you remember back to 2016, there was a new X-Files that came out, a new series they started, and a new season of the X-Files in 2016. They tried to reboot it, and they actually had a interesting story about a new pandemic and a vaccine that was poisoning people that was being put out, and it was very similar to COVID. So if you go back and watch that, and Chris Carter once again said that that idea was given to him and implanted by CIA, FBI. So, and that character is based on Alex Jones. There was a conspiracy theorist character in that was played by, I think, what's his name, Joel. He's from the Community, or that's a show called, I believe it's Community. He was in Ted. He played the bad guy in Ted, the boss. His name's Joel something, and Joel McHale, I believe his name is. And he played Alex Jones in the new reboot of X-Files. And Alex was told that that character is based on him by Chris Carter. And Chris Carter actually said that the storyline for both this 9/11 episode and the Lone Gunman and the recent X-Files 2016, based on the vaccine that was poisoning people and changing RNA, that was all given to him as pre-programming by the CIA, FBI. So you'll want to see this, because this is something that could not have been just a random show. This was pre-programming, and how pre-programming works is it plants a little seed in your head that you might not even think of. But then when something happens, like say you see this episode and then 9/11 happens a couple months later, you don't think of the episode. What happens is your brain is more likely to think that this is a real thing that could happen, because you've already been pre-programmed to believe that something like this could happen. That's how they do this in these movies and propaganda and stuff like this. They plant a little seed in your head so that you're more likely to think that this could be real and this is happening and it's not something that was planned.
What if there is no bomb?
Well, how are they going to bring it down?
Same way a dead man can drive a car.
Frank?
Yeah, exactly. Right here, what they were talking about, that part is the planes are being remote controlled in the episode, and that's what happened on 9/11 as well. They were the planes were actually just they were being driven remote controlled. That's why they were so perfect with their with what they hit, like with the WTC-1 and WTC-2. If you watch the actual flight path, it's so precise that it had to be a controlled, the planes were controlled. They were not flown by a pilot, because top pilots have tried those flight paths on the flight simulators, and they can't produce the same flight path, in 100 times, because at that speed, the altitude, when you're flying a plane, the altitude, planes don't fly at that speed at that altitude. It damages the plane. They can fly at higher speeds up higher, because the altitude does not damage the plane, but at that low altitude, a plane cannot fly at these speeds. So they know that these planes were specially designed to do this, and they know that they were remote controlled.
Spotnitz, the executive producer of The Lone Gunman, would later say, quote, "What's disturbing about it to me is that you think as a fiction writer that if you can imagine this scenario, then the people in power in the government who are there to imagine disaster scenarios can imagine it too."
And the morning of 9/11, I was directing an episode of The X-Files, and I woke up to see that on television, and my first thought was The Lone Gunman. Of course, my first thought was, God, I hope, because I didn't know yet what had happened or why, but I hope this has nothing to do with what we did on television.
There are key differences between the episode and the actual event.
This is where he tries to gaslight you about minor differences,
such as the perpetrators being rogue agents operating outside of the knowledge of the full government. Also,
wait a minute, he doesn't know that. He doesn't know that that's true.
It takes place late at night instead of in the morning.
Oh, it takes place late at night and not in the morning. It's totally different. You see how this is called gaslighting.
Other cases of predictive...
See, this is why he can make money off this, and YouTube allows it to get 90,000 views, and my video will get 2 views, because he gaslights you the whole time, and he tells you all these little things to make you kind of question yourself. Yeah, that's called gaslighting. That's called lying. That's called, taking the FBI, CIA side and, slandering those who question it.
Programming rely more on visual similarities. The card game Illuminati New World Order, released in 1995.
You see, he briefly went over that. He didn't go too in-depth about the lone gunman because that's such an absurd piece of evidence that they knew in like 3 months before 9/11 or whatever it was March of 2001. So, like months before 9/11, there was a show on the X-Files spinoff that explained exactly what was going to happen on 9/11. He brushed over this very quickly because even he knows that how absurdly weird that
card
is.
Named for a reason. The 9/11 one was strictly because properly read an analog clock. Yeah, I know, the numbers themselves aren't buildings and the idea. The majority of these are, once again, only helicopters.
Okay, I just want to go back through and make sure there's nothing that I missed here. Yeah, I've said a lot of what I can. Speak in the comments if you have any questions or any concerns about what I've said. It's so disgusting what they did here. I mean, the people, and let's not forget one thing, okay? The victims' families started the 9/11 truth movement because they realized, like anybody would, when you take 5 minutes and think about 9/11, they thought, wait a minute, this makes zero sense at all. We need answers because our family members were just murdered and they couldn't find answers. So to say that questioning 9/11 is insulting the victims' families, no. When you stick, like this kid that made these videos and making money by continuing to spew the CIA, FBI lies about 9/11, he's insulting the families of 9/11. When you say truth and you try to expose the lies about 9/11, you're helping the victims' families of 9/11, okay? That's why my video will get 3 views and his video will get 90,000 views. He's making money and I don't care to make a cent off of this because I'm just trying to spread the truth, okay? That's what it comes down to. The victims' families started the 9/11 truth movement because they wanted answers about their family members, okay? Not some scumbag making, 25 cents a view on his YouTube video when he realizes he can spew the CIA, FBI side, and he's getting YouTube's allowing him to do that. It's disgusting. You can spend 5 minutes looking at 9/11. You can tell there's a million different things that don't add up. Okay, and I hope you enjoyed my video. And to the guy that made this video and the people that make these lying FBI, CIA, videos that explain, like I said, I could make a video telling you how the sky is green and I could get 16 experts and they're all sponsored by NIST and the FBI. At some point you need to start to use common sense and you need to think, wait a minute, why is there 26 different things that are very sketchy about 9/11, Why was anthrax delivered in the mail 2 days later and then that turned out to be something from an FBI lab? You see, like, there's so many things that are so absurdly, it's not even close, because you got to remember they didn't expect that the internet would be something where we could have conversations like this. They didn't know it was going to be like this. They assumed, oh, they've got your MSNBC, you've got your CNN, you got your Fox News, we've got control of all those, so there's not going to be any commentary about this anyway, so what does it really matter if there's a few questions? They didn't see this coming. This is a problem for them, okay? And that's why they're trying to crack down on your free speech on the internet and things like this right now. This is a problem. It was a problem. They had a lot of problems trying to explain a lot of these things, and they made a lot of fucking money. You don't think they made hundreds of billions in Iraq and Afghanistan and all these wars? And I mean, come on, it just goes on and on. It just goes on and on. You don't think that people would take down a building and kill 3,000 people for hundreds of future billions? Please. There's a million people lining up that would do that in a heartbeat, so don't even think for a second they wouldn't. Anyways, thanks for checking out the video. There's probably a lot I missed in this video. I just wanted to try to go over this guy's lies, this disgusting guy that made these videos that's getting paid by YouTube to spew these lies. And anyone out there that does this, you're disgusting, and shame on you. And the victims' families, they started the 9/11 Truth Movement because they wanted answers to how their family was burned alive in these buildings. So don't sit there and think it's disrespectful to ask questions about this event. It's disrespectful to go along with these lies. Thanks for watching the video. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you. Bye.